Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. I hate to break this to you, but frankly, you probably will never have six-pack abs. You probably never be a teen model either. I'm sorry, I hate to be the one to break that to you, but frankly, it is a genetic rarity that people have six-pack abs and the huge biceps, big calves, narrow waist, yada yada yada. Frankly, about only 2% of the population have the genetic potential to become bodybuilders or professional athletes. I mean, think about how few people are actually playing in the NFL. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of people play high school sports, but it thins out pretty quickly when you go up to the collegiate level, and then it thins out even more. There's only you have a great team of college athletes, but only about 8 or 9 of them get drafted and get to play in the NFL. So you start to realize that how few people can compete at that level. So I hope this isn't breaking your heart, but on the other side of the coin, it's not an excuse not to make the most of whatever genetic potential God has given you. And before I go any further, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. That helps tell the algorithm at YouTube that what we're talking about here is important information, and it really helps me build the channel and get this message out to more people. So hit the like, subscribe, and you can hit the bell button up there too. That will let you know when I put out a new video. I try to put out a new one every single workday. But let's talk about this genetic governor that controls muscle growth. And it is really fascinating when you study it. It is possible to remove this governor. They've done it with dogs in an experiment, and you can see in this picture just how freakish it really is when you remove that governor and you allow a critter to grow unlimited amount of muscle. It just doesn't look natural. Kind of like most modern bodybuilders at the professional ranks. Now there's 2 types of bodybuilders. There are the naturals, and then there's professionals. And it doesn't mean that the naturals are not professional bodybuilders. They are just doing it without chemical enhancement. It used to be that there was a very real limit to what you could accomplish in bodybuilding, because even when they did take steroids, there just wasn't what they have now. But with human growth hormone and all these other chemistries, professional bodybuilding is almost as much a chemistry show as it is a real show of how much work they put into it. That is not to say that professional bodybuilders do not put in a lot of work. They really do, but they're also able to do things that no bodybuilder's ever been able to do because of the chemical enhancements. Human growth hormone and anabolic steroids have utterly changed the sport and taken people that normally wouldn't have had the calf muscles that you see, but because they're able to inject the muscle and simulate growth in an artificial way, even people that can't genetically produce calf muscles normally are able to at this current time. But they pay a price for it. I mean, there's a lot of people that die very early because of all the chemistry that they're doing with their bodies. But I do have a lot of respect for a lot of the natural bodybuilders, because they are taking what genetic potential they bring to the table and enhancing it with a tremendous amount of work and real dedication as far as cutting down the amount of body fat that they have to optimize the muscles that they do have. And that is not something that is sustainable. Anybody that's competed or knows anybody that's been in bodybuilding, even at the natural level, knows that you cannot maintain that low level of leanness for an extended period of time. They're walking around completely dehydrated, feeling miserable right before a competition, trying to optimize what they have. So that's, when you see a model and you see a picture of some bodybuilder, some physique athlete, just keep in mind that they are probably feeling absolutely miserable at that particular moment, because they're basically dehydrating themselves, trying to push out every bit of fluid that they possibly can to show off as much tone as they possibly can for that one picture. That's not how they look in real life. Now, all that being said is, this is not really an excuse for you to ignore the genetic potential that you do have. You know, I found it fascinating when I was prepping for this video, listening to stories about different bodybuilders and people that have succeeded and those that haven't. And, you know, there's people like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was not only a completely well-rounded bodybuilder and with all of his body parts, but, you know, his calves were just kind of phenomenal. They were almost unworldly at that particular time. And what was fascinating, those are just natural. I mean, he really didn't have to work those very hard at all. They just kind of grew because that's how God gifted them. But there were some athletes that it didn't make any difference what they did. They could never grow calf muscles. And, you know, they could work and work and work. And that was frankly, you know, they were out of that field because they just couldn't grow them in certain areas because that's just the hand that God dealt them. You know, you can't beat genetics. But, you know, genetics loads the gun. Your work is what pulls the trigger. So you may not be able to develop big calves, big biceps. You may never get strong quickly, but that's not an excuse for trying to beat sarcopenia. See, you need, as you age, more muscle and more strength. And the way you get that is about 25% through adequate amounts of protein. And when you think about it, you know, there's no real one magic formula. This is how much protein you need, but somewhere in a range of 125 to 160 grams a day for the average adult, and that's both male and female, is a good range to be shooting for. And if you're in that range, you're probably getting adequate protein as you get older. But 75% of muscle growth is really going to boil down to this. How much work do you do? And, you know, if you're not doing hard manual labor, if you're not working in a farm, factory, lifting heavy things, then you need to start incorporating the lifting of heavy things into your daily life. You need to do some sort of resistance training. For most of us, that involves lifting weights or bands. You know, you could do body weight exercises, you know, strenuous yoga type stuff, but you know, but don't try to do light weights for many repetitions. That does not create muscle tissue. You need to put it under intense strain. And don't be afraid of it if you're old. There's a bunch of people that have started lifting weights in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond that only got stronger. And, you know, it takes a little while to build up, you know, to overcome your mind's reluctance to push itself. But once you do that, you know, the sky's the limit, you know, or at least your genetic potential is the limit. And one way to find out if you're hitting your genetic potential is to test out your own grip strength. Grip strength is not something that you want to train for to make yourself stronger, but it is a good proxy marker for how strong you are overall. So go down to a local playground, find a bar, and see how long you can just hang on it. Have somebody time you. And if you're under a minute, you have some serious work to do because you're not even close to your genetic potential, because virtually anybody should be able to hold themselves on a bar for at least a minute, preferably up to 2, to test, to make sure that they are optimally strong. Because if not, you're frankly suffering from sarcopenia. You're having muscle wasting, and that is going to lead to some real problems down the road. You know, the world doesn't need frail people. We don't need frail old people. You know, you need to be as strong as you possibly can in order to age well and to be able to enjoy time with your grandkids, great-grandkids, hopefully great-great-great-grandkids, you know. But in order to have that level of strength, you have to work for it. You have to eat for it, and you have to put in the effort to do some form of resistance training to maximize your genetic potential that you've got. And, you know, the goal is not to look like those people on the covers of magazines. The goal is not to become a bodybuilder. The goal is to maximize your genetic potential to be as strong as you possibly can. It's a vitally important thing that will only make your life better. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. Again, I like to put out a new video every single workday. I will talk to you soon.